I'm gonna publish this, so I'll do my best to not, to not goof up. Today I wanted to talk about how, in season 4 at least, raiding is dead. I'm being very hyperbolic about that. I don't truly believe that raiding is dead. However, the way that season 4 has been framing itself, it's framed itself in such a way that raiding is clearly like not inferior. It's not worse, but I would say it's worse off than the other two components of the big three, organized PvP and dungeon stuff. Hey, it's Soul, by the way. This is a recorded video. I'm on stream right now. We're just gonna chat. This is second screen kind of content, so feel free to listen. Of course, like the video, subscribe for more stuff. And yeah, today I wanted to talk about just kind of the current state of season 4, because I would say we're in this really fantastic honeymoon season for people who are big on Mythic Plus and to a somewhat lesser extent organized PvP or rated PvP. Because with many of the changes that are coming in season 4, at least at this point, you can just freely farm your way to very close to max level if you just slam rated PvP, and if you slam Mythic Plus, you'll be able to farm up virtually limitless amounts of Valor. And then the drops that you get, you can just start pumping Valor into that stuff, or of course save it for whatever good things that you get when it finally comes. But essentially, as long as you're running Mythic Plus, you have unlimited gear. And same thing goes with PvP, but I'm going to be talking more about Mythic Plus because there's more people that do PvE content for the most part. On the other hand, raiding is in a better state. It's in a better state. This whole season is about doing experiments, and part of it does not mean, oh, they need to have parity between all three of these game modes. Screw it. They're going to try stuff out, please. And I praise Blizzard for having the stones to go for it. So I'm just making comments, observations. I'm not asserting that, oh, it's dead or anything like that, but it's giving like certain impressions right now, and I'm just going to share them. So with raiding, you're still subject to limits. You can only get loot from up to 10 bosses in a given difficulty. There is going to be the opportunity to buy end game gear, like weapons, trinkets, and stuff from that vendor, but you can only buy up to 3 pieces. And it was basically time gated for 3 weeks. You needed to have killed 30 bosses, then you get your first token thing. The next one is going to be, I think, 2 weeks worth of bosses, and then the last one is going to be 1 week's worth of bosses. And then you will have 3 pieces of normal raid gear. And from that, you would need to kill more and more bosses on heroic only in order to take that gear and upgrade that to heroic level. And then you would need to farm a bunch of mythic bosses to do the same thing, and then eventually get mythic gear. I'm leaving holes there. There's lots of things to consider with that, because obviously if you're just killing lots of bosses and whatnot, and you're doing Mythic Plus stuff, it's all meant to complement each other. At least at the moment, though, with regards to Mythic Plus, it's very lopsided. Like, essentially, one person can get 12 of 12 gear, get pretty close to an item level of 300 in a week, if they really push it, right? They still need to put in that play time. They still got to put in the work. Pure raiding, though, not nearly the same parity. There's still a lot to be desired there, and so I hope that even Mike Ybarra is asking for feedback on season 4, and people have been giving it. I'm going to keep giving it, and all of us should be talking about keeping up conversations about how people feel about the short and long term of the season. Right now, we're in the short term, and the short term is that pure raiding feels like whack. It's just a quick thing to do, whereas Mythic Plus, ooh, that's the real game, right? But it's still subject to the real social real social barriers that people try to overcome with regards to score, with regards to levers and group building. Those sorts of struggles have stayed. Nothing there has been refined. The only thing that's been changed really is the uncapped valor, which is cool. But I could also set up a narrative. I could also set up this false narrative that Blizz is so, scummy and blah 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 because they're only propping up raiding, organized raiding, through that damn slime cat, and that's why the slime cat can only be farmed up in normal or higher difficulty, because if it wasn't for that, organized raiding would be dead. Because there would be very, very little incentive, to be honest. Almost honest. There'd be very little incentive to go into raids, except for certain trinkets, or the legendary bow, or them daggers. Certain things, certain specific things. But if you want power, you go elsewhere. You don't go to raids for the power. You get the consolation prizes. You're subject to the time gated stuff, and that doesn't feel great. But again, these are the short-term implications. Right now it feels good, and now we're going to really see that test, that test that we often see discussed in forums, Twitter, social media. What happens when we're able to farm our way to like the max level stuff faster? Because from there, players are given several different choices. One, it's like, oh, my character's done. All right, cool. See you in Dragonflight, buddies. And then they bounce out. Or it's like, cool, I did this. I intend to work on my alt now. Or swap between multiple alts because that's fun and that's great. Or, wow, I got this much power. Look at me. I'm gonna push keys. I'm gonna push it harder. And then people will fall within several degrees of these camps and all that. So we're going to see in the next month or two, what's the longer term impact of what's going on here? Are the players that are right now like, oh, I'm really enjoying this stuff and blah blah blah, are they eventually going to be like, oh, I'm done? Now what? Because there's the question of, is that okay? Is that going to be acceptable in players' eyes and Blizzard's eyes? Because of course, when we're discussing these sorts of things, we could say, oh yeah, that's so bad because tons of people are going to quit because they're just done with the game and blah blah blah. We could talk our heads off with regards to that. But what's actually going to happen? I'm very curious to see how that plays out. Me personally, for the short term, nothing's changed. My habits have not changed at all. I am still playing the game the same way that I always have, despite the incentives, despite things like opening up. And some guildmates have not. They have embraced, oh, dude, I'm getting all this stuff. Dude, let's go. And because it's very rewarding, it has a very direct loop, and there's nothing really to like hold folks back. And for those folks, that's fun. For me, it just doesn't, it doesn't pull me in, and that's also 100% okay. What I'm slightly worried about, though, is that while this is a shorter season, if we have this sort of season as a regular season, as a regular like 5 to 6 month season, I would be worried about newer folks that are coming in who are like, who are going to have this kind of like weird, skewed, distorted view of what gearing up is going to be like in dungeons, because a newer player, not an alt necessarily, but like a newer player will come and be like, hey, I want to do a dungeon, or I want to start doing this Mythic Plus stuff, and they're going to have certain options. This is just speculating now. They're going to see burly dudes that are running low keys because they are just farming up valor or something like that. And so those people aren't going to learn anything. It's kind of like what I was talking about earlier with tanks and leveling dungeons. Like, you're going to go into these things, but they're not going to learn anything. They're just going to see like these dudes just like sweep the land tanks are just gonna solo like a whole bunch of mobs in like 5s to even 10s or something like that because they have ridiculous item level. And then as these folks are trying to build themselves up, they're gonna find that, oh, I'm getting this gear but I can't perform because I've only been doing like these really low keys. Everyone has ridiculous like Mythic Plus scores. I can't get into groups. Oh, just make your own group, and so we go back to those sorts of conversations. So I can't help but feel like people are going to be challenged, and Blizzard acknowledged that when they talked about, oh, we're going to remove the conquest cap, and talking about PvP a little bit. That's a more direct. There's a more direct impact of letting people just farm their faces off and get to a very high item level, because in PvP, part of you gearing up and part of you enjoying that experience is at the expense of others. Your epic wins. Oh, that was dope. We raffle stomped and that was so much fun. But what about the other side? Wow, I can't do anything. I just get two-shot. What the fuck is this? And so, this is me mostly like trying to observe and trying to understand like what are going to be the short and long-term impacts of this season, because it's going to be fascinating. I'm not trying to put like a cynical take or spin on this. I think it's going to be wild. We're only entering the 3rd week and it's still going to be like kind of crazy, and I can't wait for more. I feel like with raiding, like it's more of like the Blizzard MO, where they want to kind of pace things, but then they're going to make it a little bit faster. I believe they intended to make like the Dinar quest faster over time, so you definitely see like this difference of, okay, with raids, we're going to leave the gloves on. We're going to hold back. We're going to be very conservative about what we're going to do. PvP Mythic Plus, fuck it, just throw it all out the window. Let them farm and all that. And then as for non-Big 3 players, just let them stay down there, which is very unfortunate. I know I haven't really talked about them, but this subject is mostly about like Big 3 gameplay and like the differences with these experiments that Blizzard's running. Very conservative stuff with raiding, not so much with PvP and Mythic Plus stuff. And it's gonna be interesting to see like how people, what the feedback is going to be, and what the results of these experiments are going to be in the long run. Because I would love for raiding to also to also have opportunities to farm faster, to just kind of like not have those gated loops. Just let me farm stuff. So the only idea that came to mind, which may suck, but I'm gonna share it anyway, which will just totally distract the comments, I bet. The only idea that I had was to take those upgrade tokens, hey, kill bosses, you get tokens, you can upgrade the gear that you've been getting. Right now, you only see it in heroic and mythic raids. Why not do it with the other modes too? So let's say you do Raid Finder. You do Raid Finder, you get gear, whatever. You do normal and you get gear, but you also maybe get upgrade tokens. And then those upgrade tokens can be used to upgrade the Raid Finder gear to normal. Or maybe Raid Finder and normal should have those tokens, so that way you could use those to upgrade up to normal. I don't know, something like that. But basically, I just want to have like more of those tokens. So right now we're used to conversations of, if you want to do the best content, or if you want to do the hardest content, then whatever. And that still mostly rings true for the current iterations of Mythic Plus and PvP, because you still have a score requirement. You still have a rating requirement. But for the most part, I feel as if it's just more accessible than it was before. That's the vibe that I'm getting at this moment. Snapshot, 2 weeks into season 4, things could very much change. But there's also the whole, hey, you got to do mythic if you want to have mythic gear or whatever. But Yeah, I feel like that's the big thing that's missing. Like just to have like kind of a gap closer between raid finder difficulty to normal to heroic. Right now, what is going on with raids is that all that raid finder people get is the dinar stuff, which is cool. They get 270, they get some 278s, and then there's like weekly event stuff. There's the world boss. It's just very limited. I think that there could be more of a gap closer with raid finder and normal, so that way they can just get like a bit, they can get just better gear. And I know that there's a big conversation about, hey, I don't want to do group content at all. I get that, but for now, I'm just gonna stick with big three related stuff, limited group content. I think having gap closers like that wouldn't be so bad, because right now you think about, I'm not quite sure, I don't know off the top of my head, but if you do mythic zeros, I know you get 262s. I remember that. And then once you start doing 2s and higher, then you can start upgrading that gear. That stuff is better than raid finder. I feel like raid finder should at least have that sort of path. Just have lower barriers, dude. And let people have the gear, and then from there let people's like skills separate themselves when you start going into those higher brackets. Because I feel like that gate, that gatekeeping that people do, it's working at far too low of a level, maybe, and it could be like a little bit higher. Why raid when you do Mythic Plus and run it multiple times a day and have a way better chance of getting loot? So you almost need to do Mythic Plus just to get the gear of groups, or groups won't take you for raids. That is very close to true. But I believe that's definitely it's the burden of choice with group leaders, because if you're a group leader, of course you can set the group. And then when you set up your group and you put in your thing and you see people sign up, you're going to make choices, and you're going to make those choices based on, well, you're going to be, pretty much zero group leaders are going to be like, I'll take that fresh guy over there because I want to help them out. I'm purely altruistic. And I'll take these other burly folks that'll help carry this person. But I'm going to be really nice. No, they don't do that. They pretty much never do that. Group leaders, they set up groups because they are I'm making this up. This is headcanon, but they're fed up and they just want successful runs, god damn it. So they're gonna make the best choices, the most optimal choices they can make, so they can ensure that their precious time is not wasted. And that's 100% fine. That's totally fine. But that's the fallout though. When you have that burden of choice, or when you give yourself that burden or privilege of choice, you're gonna make the best choice. And people who are like, hey, I'm just trying to work on this thing, no. Make your own group and do the same thing. So it's this loop of behavior. Kind of sucks. Raiding is dead this season if you stick to heroic. There's no AOTC to strive for, plus uncapped valor. Doing mythic though. My best in slot is all raiding besides Mechagon rings. Yeah, the whole notion of best in slot and people working towards to complete that list, I mean, that's a thing. Just like me wanting to complete my transmog set. It's just that the difference is mine lasts forever, yours doesn't. Ha ha ha. I raid for the mogs mostly and different mechanics, etc. to mix up the week. I mean, like I said, I'm trying to not put a cynical spin on what's going on. I'm gonna clickbait the title though, for sure. Because fuck it. But no, I'm embracing the idea that this is an experiment, that these are experiments. They're trying things out, and some of these are working out. So I'd like to see certain sorts of improvements, things to make things better for everybody. So that way, people are like, no choice is bad. So that the choices that we make of how we want to play the game are tough to make because they're all good choices. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do raids, and I can do this. I can do Mythic Plus and do this, and I just don't want people to feel shit because they are purely this or purely that. Right now, raiders don't have it so great, but we could just run keys. It's not, it's not like we can't slide over, What I'm not too fond of, though, is how you end up not really going to raids for the gear necessarily, not for the power. There might be trinkets, there might be a weapon or something, but largely, if you just want item level, Mythic Plus is the place to go. And it kind of sucks that it feels like that's not just a stepping stone, but a cheat to help you overpower the other content beyond, of course, certain trinkets, weapons, or whatnot. The Creation Catalyst did not help raiding. Overall, I think it's better for the game, but it didn't help raiding specifically because it's like, oh, well, I'm just gonna, as someone who doesn't do Mythic, I have Mythic pieces because I would do 15s and I would get pieces that are related to that set. So it's my way of getting it without having to wait, a couple expansions later for me to farm the transmog on Mythic later on. So I just feel like raiding has not been very advantageous as of late. It's not ruining the game. It just steers me in a different direction that I'm a little bit less comfortable with. If I recall, you cannot upgrade from Raid Finder. You can only upgrade starting from normal. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay, it will take an LFR or normal item and make it into heroic. Okay. Shit. Imagine with me for a second, what if there was just no loot lockout? Right? What if these shards, because you gotta kill like 20 bosses or something like that in order to make one token. You need to kill a lot of bosses. What if those were taken up? No, that wouldn't feel... Well, actually, no, that kind of would be what's going on now. No lockout on the currency. But then they could get gear too. So I guess I am saying that. See, this is the beauty of me still recording. So then I can own up to my mistake of not reading this and edit that in. Brilliant. So no loot lockout for raiders. It sounds so blunt and chaotic, but I think in the face of what's going on with Mythic Plus and PvP, you might as well, right? Now what would now socially, what would this do? What would this really do? What would it would you would potentially have people just farming the first boss or two of Faded, so that way they can get like either the gear and or the currency and just keep farming that until they win. So yeah, the player behavior would be very odd. So maybe the tokens can still be maybe the tokens can still be gated somehow. No, that wouldn't feel right either. Yeah, let's just talk about the impact of what it would do. People would be farming like the first couple of bosses for just tokens. Hey, do token farm. We just go in, we go in, kill Terragru or something like that, reset, do it again. And again and again and again and again and again. Locking tokens would be fine. Would it be though? Because Valor's not capped. Conquest isn't capped. Why should tokens be capped? Because if we cap tokens, then then we're kind of going back to the same conversation, right? A daily token lockout. Let's embrace no lockout for now. Let's just talk about like how shit can this get? Just how chaotic would this be? So you would have people who are farming just the first bosses for just tokens. So there would be like a whole community based on that. Degen heaven, yes, sure. Because what you would have too are you would have people rotating in and out. So people will be getting tokens for the sake of getting tokens, but you might have people that are kind of like cycling in and out because some people are like, well, I'm here, I want to get the gear. First boss drops dope stuff. I really want these things. So you would have folks that are doing that. But of course, even if you have tokens, they don't mean squat if you don't have gear to upgrade. So there are going to be people who are just continuously clearing the raids too. Game time lockout, you can only play 10 hours a week? Are you nuts? Raid clears will be front loaded during each patch with high... Well, I'm just talking about now. I'm only talking about right now. Season 4, faded raids. You know, if they were to hot fix it, boom. Just like what they did with... just like what they did with, you know, Valor and Conquest and stuff. No lockout would mean people like me would play nonstop for a month, getting all the loot they can. Stop playing because they took out the only incentive to play, which is gearing. Farming the first boss of Sanctum over and over again. You know, that's a lot of trash. To be fair, right? That's a whole lot of trash. People who are going to degen are going to find a way to degen, but I think for the most population, it would be a non-issue. I agree. I think that's taking the worst situation and applying that to every player is not fair because it wouldn't happen. What's this, a point for no raid lockouts? Yes. Time would be the new currency. Isn't game time lockout what happens in... No, there's instance lockouts. But I would say that 10 instance lockouts per hour versus even clearing like the first boss of a mythic... So, let's see. Shriekwing, Terragru, and the last one. Shriekwing is easily like the fastest one to do if you're just token farming. I'd say like all the other bosses are pretty slow. Like you don't want to do like, oh, let's do the first 3. Now, if you're just token farming, you're only gonna do Shriekwing if it's a Shriekwing week. Dude, let's go, you know, and they're just gonna farm the crap out of that. Okay, so there's token farming, but I think I don't know, maybe there would be a healthy population of players who would just be doing continual full clears of raids. And it's going to get faster and faster and faster. Oh man, that would disrupt so many things. It's like, hey, here's the weekly, here's the weekly DPS check thing, and you would have like, you'd have so many more logs. There would be like 10 times the number of raid logs that there are right now. That'd be hella funny. So I'm actually looking at this, and I don't think it'd be that bad. It'd be bad in some circles, and some people would be they would be totally burning themselves out, because it's one thing to be like, hey, I'm gonna chain a bunch of dungeons, because those are like 20-30 minute blocks, right? A raid it'll get faster and faster, but they're much bigger blocks. You know, you have breaks during bosses, and you know there's trash to pull and things like that. But if someone were to spend their whole day raiding as if they're like, you know, like Liquid or Echo doing split runs and stuff, I'm sure it's gonna, you know, burn those folks out. But as long as that, you know, if there's still that opportunity to continually just set up groups and just run stuff, is that so bad? You can't design around the turbo. No, you can't. I believe that the WoW team had talked about how they tried and they failed and they couldn't really do it. Hey, look, Sylvanas is doing her thing again. Wouldn't there be people saving lockouts? Oh yeah, I wonder technically how would that work? It's like people would have like certain bosses up or whatever. People would kill those, you know, they would go into the instance, create that save, have people go in, and then that person leaves, right? And ta-da, that save is preserved. So that way they can do that sort of stuff again. It does sound like degen and all that, but it's also kind of a way of players curating or customizing their own raid farming runs. It's like, hey dudes, I'm here and I'm doing a this and this lockout with these bosses, come join. And so people will join, and then the person goes in, they switch characters, they do the run, they repost, they do it again. And for now, like I said, fuck, let's throw out limits for a little bit. Would that be, I don't think that'd be so bad. People being able to kind of customize their raids to like only have certain bosses up or certain bosses available, and the people just go in. And then from there, people would be like, oh, what's it called? Like Jailer's a quick fight. No, yeah. From there, people can kind of organize. Okay, let's do this instead of the first boss. Instead of a Shriekwing, maybe this other boss will be like can be done even faster, and then that'll be the meta for token farming. They don't choose, but they can make multi-legs from one boss to another. First 3 required, and then the next boss behind them unlock path to all boss. Basically. No, what I'm talking about on professionals is people just saving certain lockouts to have certain bosses up. It's going to suck because depending on which boss is left up, there's going to be a lot of trash before that boss. Because I know that there in some raids, you got to take down a certain number of bosses, and then all the trash will perma disappear because the trash related to that boss is gone. You don't want them to be able to choose their own custom raids. Ew. But here's the question. Legit, here's the question. Why not? People can choose their dungeons. Now, granted, they're not choosing their dungeon bosses and all that, but people can choose their dungeons so they can have faster 30, 40, 25 to 40 minute play sessions so they can get a couple bosses and get some gear. Why not allow players to mess with their lockouts, their save instances, and be able to create their own sort of raid thing so that way they can set it up for their friends or sell them. I don't know. Okay, they probably won't sell them. Because loot tables on each boss wouldn't mean the same. I think they should be able to clear a raid 10 times a week, but I don't want them to be able to specifically farm back 3 bosses. But why not? I mean, there's that whole I don't think it's right sort of thing. I get that. But logically, what's wrong with that? I don't know. The 3 bosses in the back are still harder than the 3 bosses in the back. But if people want to farm them, they can do that now. It's just once a week. But what would be like the really big problem with them being able to continuously farm them if Mythic Plus and PvP, you can continually farm that? It devalues. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. Because right now, raiding is entirely devalued. I'm trying to be open-minded. I've never really supported these ideas before, but in the face of what we're looking at now, fuck it, why not? Most teams have the skips already, first boss. Yeah, and that's the other thing. People already have the skips too. And so even without manipulating lockouts, there's already skips that people take advantage of, so that way they can get to them last couple bosses and the higher item level a little bit faster. And so having like 1 or 2 bosses be like a barrier to be like, oh, well, here's a way that's, they have to get through that. Screw it. That, to me, that's not enough. You might as well just let them manipulate their lockouts to be whatever they want, whatever they want it to be. The mess that I see is because this is entirely a player driven sort of thing. It's going to be like, it's going to be this convoluted mess because, like I said, the process would be a person has this very specific lockout of having only the last boss, or having this boss here, this boss there, this boss there. They go in with the group, and then as soon as people start going in, that person, they leave, switch to their actual character that they want to get gear with, and then go in there, so that way they preserve that lockout. It's weird, but oh well.